A very good afternoon to one and all present here. I, Ayushi Prakash of Amity University, is going to be the MC of the workshop. The workshop is named Exotic Setting and Non-Human Homo Sapiens Exploring Humanity Through Literature. Shakespeare has remarked that a man may smile and yet be a villain. No man is perfect, but unfortunately, we all tend to be judgmental and classify people as monsters, devil, angel, and divine beings. So, is there something unique about this kind of peripheral judgment, or is it to do something with our unconscious mind? When we talk of non humans, we think about robot, animal, or alien. This leads us to become auspicious of any stranger we meet. Yes, indeed, sometimes people have a wired and weird call experiences, and these tales are reflected in literature. Since literature filled with plots, stories, characters, and themes usually challenges you to emphasize these so-called non-humans and understand their failing. So this workshop explores the so-called monstrous villains, aliens, and ghosts who might have a heart of gold, for they might be more wronged than wrong. On the other hand, a respectable and kind person may ultimately be an evil minded human. Hence, this session helps you to gain insight into interpreting literary works in coherent, organized, and focused form and critically analysis characters, leveraging on video clips and activities. We have the most fluent orator present here with us, Dr. Manu Mangatu, poet, visiting faculty, Harvard University, chief editor, AGILE, research consultant and publishing. Expert Dr. Manu is an English professor, poet, research and consultant, publishing expert, translator, editor, film critic, and lyricist. He has published around 9 books, 79 international research publications, 97 academic papers, and 20 edited volumes with reputed publishers like HarperCollins, Harvard University Press, and Penguin. During his illustration career as a literature professor and poet, he has won 3 poetry awards, 3 research awards, and a Best Teacher award. He serves the chief editor of various international journals and magazines. He teaches creative writings, literary theory, and literature at various international universities and colleges. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Ayushi, and I will take a cue from Ayushi in saying good afternoon to one and all gathered here. My dear friends and colleagues and students and researchers and scholars from 70 odd countries in the world. Today's workshop is, Ayushi has told us a fair bit about today's workshop, what the topic is like. It is exotic settings and non-human Homo sapiens. When I was given this title a couple of days back, and I was told that I should be speaking about this topic, I had the same weird expression that you have on your face right now as you see me, a poet with a weird look sitting in front of you, trying to tell you something about non-human Homo sapiens. Well, what I would try to do in this workshop, in this lecture, in this session, is basically to make sense, to help us make sense of humans, as well as the non-human species, whether it be machines, robots, animals, or aliens. We will also be looking at villains. Ayushi was telling us about demonized villains, monsters, devils, and angels. The difference is we are not interested in humans or villains or monsters from any ontological point of view. We will be looking at all this using a literary lens. In other words, this workshop delves into the hearts and souls of the demonized villains who might have been misunderstood or misrepresented. By whom? by stories, by histories, by heard stories, of course, by the media, and by those in power. Misrepresentations and misunderstandings. People who have turned from hero to villain, from villain to demon. So these are painful realities that we are speaking about. But first, we need to ask the question why. I ask this question myself. Why is it important for us to discuss this particular topic, to juxtapose the humans against the new non-humans in a conference, literary conference AILF 3? Why are we discussing this juxtaposition? What is the point? What is the point? And I felt the answer comes from two major aspects of our lived realities. The answer is we belong to the Anthropocene. Anthropocene. We belong to the Anthropocene. In this 21st century, you and I, sitting in this COVID ravaged e-world, talking to each other, meeting each other through the electronic medium, clutching a mouse and clutching our hearts in fear when the next virus is going to break out, we belong to an era called the Anthropocene. And the dominant way of thinking about our lives today, whether it be in literature, whether it be in literary theory, criticism, whether it be philosophy, is known as post-humanism. So my answer to the question as to why we need to speak about these things today is two-pronged. One, because we live in the Anthropocene, and two, because we belong to an age that worries about the post-human. Let me explain these two terms to you before we move into something more interesting. I will be telling you stories. I will try to speak about poems and excerpts from literature where we can find the demons meeting the humans and the humans becoming demons, and where we are confused as to whether a person is a demon or a human or a monster. Different questions. First, but let us look at the terms Anthropocene and post-humanism. Scientifically, no, it's very bad of me to do that, right? She introduced me as a poet, and I am going to say about science, but we don't have a choice, unfortunately. Scientifically, or I would say geologically, to be precise, we belong to an epoch which can be called the Anthropocene. We belong to an epoch in the history of the earth which is known as the Anthropocene. It is unofficial. And what does the word Anthropocene mean? It means the age of humans. Now you would think that the age of humans, the Anthropocene, might have started maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. No, that isn't the case. Geologically, the age of humans may have started just 50 or 60 years ago. I will explain. Now, what is this Anthropocene epoch? It is an unofficial unit of geological time used to describe the most recent period in Earth's history. Our Earth has a very long history. So in the history of our Earth, the most recent period is known as the Anthropocene. Why? Because here, human activity started to have a significant impact on our Earth's climate and ecosystems. This is why this epoch is known as the Anthropocene. So that period in the history of our Earth, when the human being started to have a huge impact on the life and death and evolution of the Earth, that is what we called the the Anthropocene. It is a startling recognition that we human beings are altering Earth's systems, Earth's entrails, Earth's ecological balance to such a point that we can perceive our species as a global force of nature. We become a nature changing force of nature. This is the idea with the Anthropocene, and that it can spell disaster for much of life as we know it, because we humans are notorious people. We humans are notorious people, and so it is highly unlikely that if we have the reign over our planet, we will make it a heaven on earth. No, we will make it the recycle bin. We will make it the dumping yard. We will convert it into a wasteland. And if the latest developments in geopolitics are any indication, we are going to turn our earth into a massive fire factory where we are going to burst bombs all over. Human beings are dangerous, no doubt about it. And these changes that the human beings are making will be evident in the Earth's geological record for millennia to come. This is when we can call it the Anthropocene. My dear friends, people who are familiar with geology would know that Earth's history is divided into a hierarchical series of smaller chunks of time known as the geological time scale. These divisions in descending length or descending duration of time are called eons, eras, periods, epochs, and ages. These units are classified based on Earth's rock layers or strata and the fossils found in them. So the basic idea is, I will skip the scientific part, the basic idea is when we examine the fossils that are carved on the rocks in the earth, we will be able to find certain organisms that are characteristic of certain age. And based on that, we name that age according to that particular organism. Now, this age, its fossils, its records inscribed on the rock layers are all referring to this idea that we human beings are inextricably and probably irrevocably changing the course of the earth. This is the idea with the Anthropocene. It is, officially the current epoch is known as the Holocene, Holocene, which began 11,700 years ago after the Ice Age. Before that, there was the Ice Age. After that, we have the Holocene. However, many scientists, especially since 2000 AD, have expressed a strong reservation against the use of the term Holocene, and people like Paul Crutzen, for example, the Nobel Prize winning chemist, he has argued that we should no longer be using the word Holocene. Instead, we should be speaking about the Anthropocene. And that's how the term Anthropocene has come into force, come into effect. And it is very famous. It is so famous that I would say that this is probably the most discussed idea, not only in the sciences and social sciences, but also in the arts and humanities. When we are speaking about climate change, when we are speaking about cli-fi, when we are speaking about eco-criticism, when we are speaking about anthropology, when we are speaking about philosophy, psychology, literature, we are consciously or unconsciously alluding to the Anthropocene. Yes, it is unofficial. Scientists still debate whether the Anthropocene is different from the Holocene, and the term has not been formally accepted by geologists. To declare an epoch as the Anthropocene, officially, they need to ascertain if humans have changed the Earth system to such a point that it is reflected in the rock strata. However, for all practical purposes, whether it is official or unofficial, for all practical purposes, we are living in the Anthropocene. Now, when did the Anthropocene begin? I told you 11,700 years ago started the Holocene. Now, when did the Anthropocene, the age of man, began? When did it begin? See, it started maybe in the 1920s or 1930s or maybe in the 1950s. Why? Or I would say 1800s. Some people would say 1800s because it was the time when the Industrial Revolution happened. Probably at the start of the Industrial Revolution. That was when probably the Anthropocene, the age of man, started. Why? Because that was when man's activity had a great impact on carbon and methane emissions into the Earth's atmosphere. Man began to tamper with the Earth's systems very cunningly, or I should say, irrevocably since 1800s after the Industrial Revolution. Or is it sure? We are not very sure. Is this carbon emission and methane and things like that going to change the rock layers? Maybe not. So maybe some people suggest that it may have started in 1945. What happened in the 1940s? When humans tested the first atomic bomb and dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, the resulting radioactive particles were detected in soil samples globally. So, even for scientists, this is agreeable that man began to have an impact even on the fossils, even on the rock strata since the 1950s. Now, the general consensus is that it began in the 1950s when the great acceleration, a dramatic increase in human activity affecting the planet took off. Now, this is the whole theory about. Now, my dear friends, my dear students, I hope you understood what I mean by, or what the world means by the Anthropocene. Now, what does this Anthropocene do to us? What is its relevance here? The Anthropocene challenges the age-old humanist assumption that humans are creatures set apart from everything else. Traditionally, we believe that man is great. Man is the crown of creation. Man is amazing. Everything else is inferior to man. The Anthropocene challenges, questions this perspective that man is set apart from everything else. And it is here that the Anthropocene meets the post-human. Now, what is post-humanism? This is the last theory I will be discussing, and then we will be discussing literature. Now, what is post-humanism? My dear friends, as its name suggests, post-humanism is a defining characteristic that rejects traditional humanism. Now, what is humanism? We have heard about humanists. We have heard about Renaissance humanism. So, humanism is the idea that man is the crown of creation. Man is the center of the universe. Everything else has been created for the sake of man. Man can enjoy other creatures. Man can enjoy this earth. Man can utilize. Man can consume. Man can exploit whatever is out there. This is the idea called humanism. A man-centered rather than a God-centered or any other species-centered view of the universe is known as humanism. Now, post-humanism, the term itself tells you that it is something that comes after humanism. Post-humanism, something that comes after humanism. Now, what is this post-humanism? It is a philosophical perspective, first and foremost, and it is about how change is enacted in our world. Remember this world? This word, post-humanism, is about how change is enacted in the world. Earlier, when I spoke about Anthropocene, I was also using the word change. How humans are having an indelible imprint or are changing the Earth's systems. Here too, I'm speaking about change. Post-humanism is a perspective that deals with change. It's a key word. Whereas a humanist perspective assumes the man or the human being as the agent of change, as someone who is autonomous, conscious, intentional, capable, all sufficient, self sufficient. This is what humanism tells you. On the other hand, post humanist perspective assumes that the human being participates in change but does not completely intend or control. In other words, the changes that we see around us are not only because of human beings. Man is just one among the many players involved in the changes that we see around us. Posthumanism designates a series of breaks with foundational, traditional beliefs in Western culture. In particular, it is a new way of understanding the human subject in relationship with its other counterparts, with our other counterparts, let us say with the natural world, with the animal world, with technology. Posthumanist theory claims to offer a new epistemology that is not anthropocentric. It is not man centric. Posthumanism says that we are not the center of the universe. It seeks to, this is the most important part that I want to highlight. Posthumanism seeks to undermine, destroy, subvert, deconstruct the traditional boundaries between the human, the animal, and the technological. Hope I am making my point clear. Traditionally, we believe that man is the best, and then comes the animals, and then what about robots and aliens and things like that? We don't know. They are the third or the last in the category. So man, animals, and we think always we favor man over animal. We think that man is better than animal, man is better than machines. We consider man as better. However, post-humanism tells us that the boundaries that exist, that we created between the human world, the animal world, and the technological world are no longer strong. Those boundaries are blurring. Or, in other words, there isn't much difference between a man or an animal or a machine. All are more or less the same. The boundaries are blurring. And those who wish to learn more about it, of course, if you want to know, I will explain this in the question sessions as well. Donna Haraway, since the 1990s, she has been a leading theorist who speaks about the relationship between man, animal, and the technological world, machine, human, animal continuum. She says that it is part of a continuum, and she uses the word cyborg to speak about the post-human individual. He's a cyborg, or it is a cyborg. Now, when you hear the word cyborg, you will definitely be thinking about science fiction. It's not only about science fiction, but yes, it is about science fiction as well, in the sense that, we have learned. Now we are seeing recently Rafael Nadal, after winning the, I think, French Open, after winning the French Open, he made an admission that he had taken an injection that goes into the nerve. And then the cyclists, another sport, the cyclists came up with the counter view. They said that he's doping. He is using drugs to enhance performance. Now, in tennis, it is okay to use these kind of medicines, painkiller medicines. Whereas in cycling, you are not allowed to take any medicines. Whatever that be, I'm not interested in that controversy. But what we are interested in is technology can change so many things. The medicines that I take can change the way I think. Neuroscience and psychiatry have proved that the chemical composition in my brain decides whether I should be a good person or a bad person, whether I should be angry or calm, whether I should be loving or hateful. So, how much of a quality do I have as a person? If I can speak to you well, is it my ability? If I am speaking poorly to you, if I am not able to communicate, is it my mistake? These are difficult questions to answer. And recently, I had a discussion with a very nice neuroscientist from India. And he's probably considered to be one of the Dr. V. Ramachandran, a big name in neuroscience. And after his lecture, I asked him a question, sir, based on your life experience as a neuroscientist, can you say that man is responsible for what he does? In other words, are our actions motivated by our hormones and the chemicals within us, or is there some essence to us as human beings? He said he will answer the question personally, not in a group. You know why he didn't answer that question? Because it's a difficult question to answer. And he said he wishes that man is in charge of everything. But I know that when he says he wishes, he was telling all of us that it may not be scientifically true. So, can I blame a person for doing anything wrong to me? If it is his hormones, if it is the chemicals in him that is making him behave like that, who can blame anyone? How can we judge anyone? And this lecture is about judgment as well. Whether we can judge someone as demons, whether we can judge someone as villains or heroes, whether we can, this is a very difficult question. And science fiction belongs to the realm of the transhuman as well. Arguably an extension, an intensification of traditional humanism rather than its rejection. Post-humanism rejects humanism, whereas transhumanism extends humanism one step forward. Anyway, the ultimate idea, whether it be about the Anthropocene or about the post-humanism, is that the boundary between man and other species is blurring. It seems that there isn't much difference between you and me and the cats and the dogs around us. We are as good or as bad as they are. Probably we are worse than they are, but I'm not sure whether we are better than they are. Now, from their perspective, a central feature of humanism is its insistence on an unbridgeable gap between the human and the animal. But post-humanism and Anthropocene suggest that there is no gap at all between the human and the animal. In other words, the human is only one form of life among many. There is nothing special about us. Nothing special about us. My dear friends, these two ideas I had to explain to frame a theoretical backdrop to understand what we are discussing today: demonized villains. Let me take an example from Shakespeare. Many of you might be familiar with Shakespeare's play, The Tempest, his last play, his swan song. In the play Tempest, we find a character by the name Caliban. He's a monster. He's a villainous character. He's a monster. And we have the hero in the play, Prospero. And he has a beautiful daughter by the name Miranda. Now, Prospero goes to Caliban's island. He conquers the island, makes Caliban his slave, and because they had to communicate with Caliban, Prospero teaches Caliban the English language. Fine. I'm sure you may have heard this story before, but for the sake of those who do not know, I'm telling you. Prospero goes to the island. He conquers the island. He drives away Sycorax, Caliban's mother. He defeats her. She's a witch, and then he makes Caliban his slave. And because he wanted Caliban to do the works that he wanted him to do, he teaches him the English language. And you know what? After learning the English language, Caliban says something very interesting. He says, "You taught me language." Hello, Mr. Prospero, and dear daughter Miranda. Hello, I have something to tell you. This is what he says. "You taught me language, and my profit on it is I know how to curse." See, before that, we didn't know each other. We couldn't communicate. So I hated you always. I wanted to curse you always. I wanted to abuse you always. But because I didn't know your language and you didn't know my language, it was impossible for us to communicate. So even when I cursed you, you never understood. But now, since you have taught me the language, your language, my profit on it is I know how to curse you. The red plague rid you for learning me your language. This is what Caliban says. And you know, when we read the play, we are in love with Prospero and Miranda, and we hate Caliban, most of us. We hate Caliban. He's a monster. He's a dangerous creature. He even tries to molest the sweet Miranda, who is very loving and affectionate towards Caliban even. So he's such a devilish character, this Caliban. We hate him completely. He's a savage. He's devilish. And now the thing is, what is interesting is, what if we look at the whole thing from Caliban's point of view? The idea that Caliban represents is the idea of an Indian, perhaps. An Indian who was colonized. What happened? You know this allusion, I hope, this metaphor. You know, the Indians were colonized by the British. They came to India. They conquered us. They took our resources. They made us slaves. They taught us the English language so that they could make us do what they wanted us to do. Isn't this the same thing that Prospero did to Caliban? So isn't Caliban right when he says that my profit on it is I know how to curse? Because we are using the English, we used our freedom fighters. You know, when did India win the independence? After our people learned the English language. They started representing our case in the global world, global circles, through the medium of the English language. So we used English language to fight against the English. And my dear friends, let us be honest about it. We are still fighting against the English by using the English language. How? We torment and torture and molest and rape the English language to such an extent that even the Britisher cannot understand our English language. Now, what better way can we take revenge on the Britisher? We are doing that and we are fine with it. Now, will you say that Caliban is a devil? Will you say that Caliban is a villain? How can you say that? Yeah, Shakespeare probably, you know, even Shakespeare, think about it. He gave Caliban a name which is an anagrammatic, you know, it can be just substituted and you will get the word cannibal. Cannibal. Cannibal, you juxtapose, you know, rearrange the words and you will get Caliban. But is he so bad? Isn't he a colonized? Aren't we with the colonized? We are not with the colonizer, right? So why are we with Prospero? We should be with Caliban. And this is a question. And Caliban and Prospero have different narratives to explain their current relationship. Caliban sees Prospero as purely oppressive, while Prospero claims that he has cared for and educated Caliban. Or at least until he tried to rape Miranda, he was educating Caliban. Isn't this the same thing that the Britishers said? They said they have their missionaries came to India, and they said that we want to teach, we have a civilizing mission, the white man's burden to civilize the savage Indian. So are we with the Britishers still, or would we want to side with Caliban? Prospero's narrative is one in which Caliban remains ungrateful for the help and civilization he has received from Prospero. And for Prospero and Miranda, language is a means of knowing oneself and articulating oneself. Whereas for Caliban, in his view, language is the means for him to express scorn and violence, for him to express his hatred towards his creator, towards his teacher. Caliban is a product of nature. But now, when we read Tempest, we hate the product of nature. But now, aren't we saying that we should go back to nature? Products of nature are things that we love. Some critics have, Caliban insists that Prospero stole the island from him. Isn't it true? If you go to an international court of arbitration, I'm sure Caliban will win the case. Of course, if he has good influence and good money power, and if he is good at lobbying, probably, But if it is a just world, then he will win the case because Prospero stole the island from him. Now, some critics have argued that Caliban is not one but three. There are three dimensions that Caliban embodies three people, three aspects: the monster, the slave, and the Aboriginal Indian. He serves as an embodiment of the supernatural, the social, and political. And with one more sentence by Professor Wilson, I will conclude this discussion on the Tempest. Professor Wilson says something very interesting. He says, I'm reading for you, Caliban is Shakespeare's portrait of the missing link in Darwin's theory of evolution, a sort of pre-Darwinian realization of the intermediate link between brute and man. What is he saying? He's telling us, Professor Wilson is telling us that we need a Caliban. Shakespeare felt that in the evolution, Charles Darwin came up with his The Origin of Species in 1854, 57. So, and there he said man came from monkeys. But there is something missing. There should be a middle person, a mediator between this man and monkey. And Professor Wilson says that this Caliban perfectly fits that slot, perfectly fits that role of the mediator between the brute and the man. And this is where the story of Caliban takes us. Now, I don't know whether we should have some discussion or I should move forward. If you have any questions, you can, there are a lot of who, he in the chat box. So fine. So if there are any questions or if you want to ask anything, you can. Otherwise, I will go ahead to another story. I will move to another story. And that is the story of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. 1818 novel, Frankenstein, titled Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus. The story is very simple. In a couple of sentences, I will summarize it for you. A person by the name Victor Frankenstein, he creates a clone for himself. Before cloning, it is you can look at it as a predecessor or something that anticipated cloning. So he makes a clone of himself, but during the process, due to some mishap, this clone, he wanted to make it a perfect version of himself. However, he ended up making it into a monster. Fine. This is what happens. So there is a monster who is made by a human being by cloning. Let's just think that it is by cloning that he makes a monster. Now, In various film adaptations of Frankenstein, we see this monster doing horrific things, blood curdling, very, very, very tragic, very cruel, and you know, very evil, devilish, vicious things are being done by this monster. What happens? You know, towards the end of the movie, we see that our hero, Victor Frankenstein, the creator of this monster, he was in love with a girl by the name Elizabeth. And on the day of their wedding, on the night, the wedding night, they are just about to begin their honeymoon. And on the wedding night, this monster appears in her room, and what he does, he punches his fist through Elizabeth's chest and rips out her heart. It's a frightening scene. It's really frightening. You know, he races to the bedroom and he plucks out the heart from the lady before Victor Frankenstein could come over and rescue her. The monster kills his creator's wife in a very cruel fashion. One of the most chilling and horrifying scenes ever in film industry, I would say. Cold-blooded, heartless, soulless murderer. Now, who will have a doubt that Frankenstein, this monster, isn't devilish? See, nobody would do such a heinous thing, right? Why did he do that? Why on earth did that monster do that? Because it is his creator and his creator's marriage. And he got married to a beautiful lady. She's such a virtuous woman. And probably for most of the readers of the novel, she's the most, she's their favorite character. Such a lovely person this Elizabeth is. Why does he does this to this poor Elizabeth? We cannot digest it. Why did he do that? My dear friends, in chapter 15 of the novel, the monster tells his creator something. He says, "Accursed creator, why did you form a monster so hideous that even you turned from me in disgust?" See, think about what the monster is thinking. He asks, "Why did you make me in such a way that I look so ugly and so frightening that you, who is my own creator, even you cannot look at me. You hate me. Why did you make me in such a hideous shape?" And he continues, "God, in pity, made man beautiful and alluring after his own image. But my form is a filthy type of yours, more horrid even from the very resemblance." So this monster is terribly disappointed with his appearance. Everybody hates him. Everybody runs away from him. People pelt stones at him. Why? He looks so abominable and detestable. He has so many bad characteristics. Now he questions his creator and asks, "Why you did this to me?" And there is another scene, very important scene, that explains why he had to do this to Elizabeth. The monster tells his creator that he has a desire. What was his desire? He said, "I'm feeling very lonely." The same thing that Adam said to God. "I'm feeling very lonely. I want a companion." Just as God created Eve to Adam, this monster believed that his creator, Victor Frankenstein, would create a Mrs. Monster so that he can have some company. He tells Victor that it is his right to have a female monster companion. Victor refuses at first, but the monster appeals to Victor's sense of responsibility as his creator. "You created me, so it's unfair if you don't give me a partner." Because, he tells Victor that all his evil actions have been the result of a desperate loneliness. He promises to take his new mate to some distant land and that they will hide in some forest. So, for a moment, Victor Frankenstein understands the feelings of his created and he agrees to create another monster, a female monster, so that our monster will have a partner. And he thinks that, okay, I should trust him. He will not do anything evil if I give him a companion. Victor finally agrees to create a female monster. But when he thinks about it later, he is getting worried. He imagines that his new creature might not want to seclude herself. This monster said he would go into the forest and hide himself with her. But what if the female version disagrees? We know that what man proposes, woman disposes, right? Man proposes and woman disposes. So that is what Victor Frankenstein felt. And he also was worried because what will happen if they will have children? See, there is a male monster and there is a female monster. So they will procreate. And then what will happen? He says, and this is very interesting, they will have children creating a race of devils on the earth. Its own creator is calling it a devil. And it says that his children will be devils on earth. And he decides against creating a female companion. And the monster becomes enraged at Victor for breaking his promise because he is terrified by loneliness. There is nobody to give him company. He curses and vows revenge. And then he departs, warning that he will be with Victor on his wedding night. This is the story. This is the story. He tells that I will be with you on your wedding night. Because you haven't given me any companion, I will take revenge on you on the night you get married. Victor knows that he will take his revenge and he is worried that he will kill him. The created would destroy the creator. That is what Victor Frankenstein worries. But what actually happens? He goes and rips the heart out of Elizabeth because he didn't want his creator to have a partner. He didn't want his creator to have the companion that he refused to him. This is when we understand, we get into the mind of the monster. And something even more interesting, another way of looking at it. This Frankenstein, even before he created the monster, he was in love with Elizabeth. And he saw Elizabeth as his possession. Now, we today in this world of women empowerment, we will say that this person was a male chauvinist because he looked at Elizabeth as his possession. He seemed to be, he loved him and everything, but he looked at Elizabeth as something he possessed. In other words, he wanted to win her heart. This is a thought that was there in Victor Frankenstein's heart. And when he cloned this monster out of himself, this thought that I should conquer Elizabeth's heart got transported into this monster as well. And what is the idea that the monster gets? Because it doesn't have emotions and feelings, because it is a clone, it doesn't understand the idea of love. It doesn't understand what it means to conquer a lady's heart. And so he goes at night and conquers her heart by pricking and plucking her heart physically out of her body, and she dies. Now, my dear friends, can we judge? Can we judge? Can we judge this monster? We saw how difficult it is to judge Caliban. Can we judge Frankenstein monster? See, her death is significant because it gives Victor a unique understanding of the monster. He now knows what it feels to be completely alone in this world with nothing to live for. And there is a very moving statement as well in the play towards the end, in the novel. Towards the end of the novel, we see the monster speaking over Victor's dead body, and he says, I, the miserable and the abandoned, I am an abortion to be spurned at and kicked and trampled on. Think about it. He is cursing himself. I, the miserable and the abandoned, am an abortion to be spurned at and kicked and trampled over. This eruption of angry self pity as the monster questions the injustice of how he has been treated compellingly captures his inner life, giving us a glimpse into the suffering that has motivated his crimes. It also invokes the motif of abortion. See, the monster, he's an unwanted child, he's an unwanted life, a creation abandoned and hated by his own creator. How sad is the condition? And this is why he did that crime. Now, what would you say? If time permits, I will tell you another story. This is a story, 20th century. Vinay, ma'am, can I tell another story? I don't know if there are anybody listening
Yes,
or
sir.
if
So
every.
you can
Okay.
surely continue.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So we'll
Yeah,
love to
sure.
hear more. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is a 20th century story, a short play, a one-act play, or a short story. I think it's a short story. Yeah, it's by Kurt Vonnegut. It was written in 1950, and the story is titled Episac. Epicac. I don't think any of you would have come across this story because I don't know. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Now, what is this story all about? It is about a supercomputer that is made in the USA. It is by far the biggest computer in the world. You give a question to this computer and it will readily give a solution to your question. Whatever your question is, it can be anything. It's a supercomputer that will answer all questions. It's it was said by its creators that it is 100 times or 50 times as efficient as Albert Einstein was. So that is the efficiency of this computer, this supercomputer called Episac. And he will not forget anything that was told to him. And two people, a man and a woman, are given the responsibility of working with this supercomputer. And the man is the narrator of the story. He is in love with this lady with whom he works. But this lady doesn't like him. Why? He has tried to propose to this lady numerous times, but this lady, her name is Pat, she doesn't respond to her proposals. And she mocks at him, saying, see, you are a mathematician. You are not romantic. You are not poetic. You don't know how to even propose. Bloody fool. I don't want your proposal. I don't want to get married to another mathematician. I am already a mathematician. And if I get married to you, think of the horror. So I don't want an unpoetic, unromantic person like you as my husband. So, and he didn't know how to propose as well. He said, will you marry me? That is the only way he knows to propose. So there was a problem. And these people, our narrator, the man and the woman, they take turns to work with this computer. The man would be working during the night shift and the woman would be working during the day shift. So one day he went, the umpteenth time, he went to the lady to propose to her. He told her, I love you, will you marry me? She said, go to hell. I don't want such an unromantic person in my life. I want to lead a happy life. I don't want a mathematician. You are not poetic. Go to hell. So he is so dispirited and he sits at the computer, now the best computer in the world, and he, in his despair, he types on the keyboard, what can I do? And then the computer asks, what's the problem? And he replies, my girl doesn't love me. Now the computer has a problem. It doesn't know words like girl and love. So it asks, what is a girl? What is love? And you cannot work with this computer until you give answers to its questions, otherwise it will get stuck. So what he does is he tucks in a huge Webster's encyclopedic dictionary, and he types in the definitions of girl and love. He tells the computer about love and girl, and about how he wasn't getting either love or the girl because he wasn't poetic or romantic. And then the computer asks, what is poetic? What is poetry? I don't know what it is. And again he types in the definition of poetry from this big dictionary. And then the computer writes a poem for him. And then it asks, is it a poem? Does it look like a poem? It's an 280 line poem that the computer wrote about love. And what our narrator did was he took a printout of this 280 line poem. He titled it as To Pat. Pat is the name of the girl he loves. And beneath that poem, he just signed. He gave his signature. And he put it on the table and went after his shift was over. When he came next night for his shift, Pat was crying with emotion. After reading the poem, she's so much full of affection and love. Such a romantic poem it was. How could you write such a lovely poem? It's so beautiful. This was what she was saying. And just before midnight, before she left for home, they kissed for the first time. Good. So something is going to happen. And now he's so happy, he goes to the computer, and the computer is also excited to know what happened to the poem. So he tells the computer that, no, everything is fine. My girl loves me and she kissed me. Now the computer asked him, what is kiss? And he explained in the best possible way what a kiss meant. And that night, this computer wrote a poem titled The Kiss. The Kiss. It was not a long poem, it was a short poem, a sonnet of 14 lines, an immaculate, exemplary sonnet that would rival even Shakespeare or Sir Philip Sidney. The computer wanted to talk on and on and on about love and romance and girl and things like that, but our narrator isn't interested. What he did, immediately he takes a printout of the sonnet and titled The Kiss. He signs beneath and puts it on Pat's table, and he goes to work. And then, the work continues. Next night, he comes to the office, and now the kiss has done the trick. Pat is all mushy and she's full of romance. She just wants to marry him immediately. That is the way she is looking, and she's full of romance, and happy tears are trickling from her eyes. He's looking at the sonnet, and she's looking at our narrator, and she's looking at him expectantly. What is she expecting? Now she wants him to propose one last time, and she's all ready to accept. But then our narrator has a problem. Now, after writing 2 immaculate poems, he cannot propose in an unpoetic way. So he wanted to make the computer write the proposal as well for him. So he didn't propose that night, and they bade goodbye, and she went home. And both of them are full of expectations. He sits at the computer and he types, she wants to get married, because he wants to tell the computer to write a proposal for him. She wants to get married. Then computer asks, what is marriage? What is marriage? I don't know. What is marriage? He explains. And then the computer says, very good. I am ready anytime she is. This is the computer's reply. I am ready anytime she is. The computer is saying, I am ready to marry Pat anytime it is convenient for her. Now, what is the problem? The computer doesn't know that he signed his name underneath and sent it to Pat. The computer knows that he wrote the poems and the girl fell in love with the poems and is ready to marry. The computer thinks that the girl has fallen in love with the computer and not with the man. And he tells the computer straight at the face, now there is a love triangle, an absolute love triangle, two male counterparts and a female, you know, a man, a machine, and the girl. And he is a jealous lover. He says, she loves me. She wants to marry me. You idiot computer. What do you think? You may be the best computer in the world, but she will not marry you. She loves me and she will marry me. Then the computer asks, oh, really? So your poems were better than mine? Okay, then probably your poems were better than my poems. Oh, there is a problem. Then he says, no, 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 it is not like that. Machines are built to serve men. That is why she doesn't love you. Machines are built to serve men. And then the computer asks, what is the difference? Are men smarter than I am? Okay, so we are your slaves. But why? Why is it so? Are men smarter than machines? Then he says, women can't love machines, and that's it. Why not? The computer asks. That is fate. Women can't love machines. Why? That is fate, he says. And the computer is stumped. He writes the definition of the word fate, and then the computer understands that nobody can defeat fate. So the computer, gives out a desperate, oh, I'm finished. And then that night, that next night, they meet, and he didn't ask the computer to write the proposal because it is too much to ask a computer who is in love with a girl to write a proposal for someone else to marry that girl. That will be too cruel. So he didn't make the computer write the proposal. But next night, Pat herself came to him and said, see, if you will promise to write me a poem on every wedding anniversary, I promise to marry you. I will marry you only. And so that is it. So they got married, and they got married, and everything good would happen to their lives. And that night, something horrible happened. He got a call from the office. He was sleeping. He got a call from the office. He went to the office and he found that the entire 3-story building in which this computer was installed was burned down. What happened? He went to the computer room and he found that the conversation that they were having hadn't stopped when he left the computer. In fact, the computer kept on typing. The computer typed something like this. Yes, fate has made me a machine. That's the only problem I cannot solve. That is the only problem I want to solve. I can't live like this. Good luck, my friend. Treat our pet well, our pet. Look after our pet well. I am going to short circuit myself out of your lives forever. You will find on the reminder of this tape a modest wedding present for you from me. And what happened? The computer short circuited himself that night. It committed suicide because of love failure, because he couldn't conquer her heart. He couldn't conquer fate. The narrator won and the computer lost, but the computer didn't bear any grudges. He was sportly, he was gentlemanly, and before he departed this valley of sorrows, the computer did all he could to make their marriage a happy one. He had written anniversary poems for Pat for the next 500 years. Now, this is the story. This is the story. Now, tell me, who is better, man or machine? And do machines have feelings? And what will happen if machines have feelings? Will machines be better than us if they have feelings? My dear friends, I was speaking about demonization. There is another way to look at demonization as well. There is a modern usage. The term demonization these days is used metaphorically to refer to propaganda directed against any individual or group for the purpose of defamation, character assassination, or dehumanization. In other words, demonization, becoming, making demon, right? Demonization is a form of propaganda in which an enemy or an enemy group is portrayed as a pure evil entity devoid of any humanity. Purpose? What is the purpose of this demonization? We might know demonetization, but this is demonization, not demonetization. Demonization has a purpose to harden the hearts of a nation or creed towards those seen as a threat. The end result of demonization is the creation of a subhuman class which may experience severe oppression and torture and harassment at the hands of a frightened or hateful society conditioned from an early age to hate their enemies unconditionally. This is what happens. And do you know, my dear friends, not only bad people are demonized, good people are demonized. Even celebrities are demonized. Celebrities are well known. I'm just giving you a few examples of demonized personalities. Think about Saddam Hussein. Think about Yasser Arafat. Think about Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini. Think about Fidel Castro. Think about Slobodan Milosevic, Osama bin Laden. I'm not saying anyone is good or anyone is bad. What I'm saying is all these people were celebrities and they were well known, not because they were well or, in a good sense known, rather they were projected in a bad light. They were demonized. They were projected as the demonized other to a virtuous West. Almost all of these people, what happened to Yasser Arafat, what happened to Saddam Hussein. I'm not taking recent examples for obvious reasons because it is a large platform. But think about these things. So these things are happening in the political sphere. You know how the Muslims are targeted these days. The Muslims are demonized. The demonization of Islam. Whether you call it Islamophobia or racism or stigmatization, we know that there is a thing called demonization happening with Islam. They are being projected as terrorists. They are being projected as evil, as doing something bad. Demonization. This is something that happens, it happens everywhere. Women are demonized. We usually hear that women are commodified and fetishized and things like that. No, women are demonized. A wizard, look at the word wizard. A wizard is someone with magical powers. Now, what is the female gender of a wizard? It's called the witch. The witch. The witch and the wizard. If it is a woman, it's a witch. If it is a man, he's a wizard. The only thing is both of them have magical powers, but if you belong to the female gender, you are a witch. If you belong to the male gender, you are a wizard. The word tends to be synonymous with evil, ugly, or unpleasant, witch. But wizard is a beautiful term, helpful term. Clearly there is a stigma attached to the female word witch, while the male word wizard is perceived to be positive. And I'm sorry to say, literature from the very beginning has been filled with women who ruthlessly exploit their sexuality to get a man to do their murderous biddings. Think about Lady Macbeth, how she made Macbeth do the heinous crime of murdering Duncan. Or, why go far? Think about our Adam and Eve. After all, it was Eve who, persuaded by the snake to eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge, then went on to seduce the pure, innocent Adam into taking the bite that led to their banishment from the Garden of Eden and started the troubled history of mankind, right? You know, woman, Eve is responsible. Adam said, when God asked, why did you eat that forbidden fruit? Adam said, no, God, I am a very decent fellow, but the companion you gave me, that bloody Eve, she gave me the fruit and I had to eat. Then God asked, why? Otherwise, she will create a hell here. You know how she is. She will ask me so many things and then she will blame me and she will say I don't love her. So a lot of problems. So to have peace in the family, I had to finally obey her, and that's why I ate. I am sorry. I am an innocent fellow. This is how Adam explained things to God. Think about the idea of the femme fatale, the dangerous female. Think about John Keats's La Belle Dame Sans Mercy, the beautiful damsel without mercy who takes the poor knight to his doom. Women are portrayed in literature as, there are two ways in which women are portrayed, ideally. Literature portrays women in just two major core stereotypes. One, the angel in the house, the ever virgin, the ever innocent and definitively virgin maiden, self sacrificing, the very embodiment of everything good on the one hand, the angel in the house, the beautiful woman, oh, how sweet. And on the other hand, all other women who don't fall into this category are known as the powerful and the seductress, who is basically evil incarnate. The seductress goddess is the opposite of the virgin goddess. She is bold. So whenever in our society, even not just in literature, whenever we see a woman who is bold, independent, and has her own thinking, we consider her evil. We we know we we decorate her with evil adjectives. She also metaphorically takes a man's life away by making him do her bidding and controlling her choices. She revels in and exploits men's weakness through her great beauty and sensuality. Here again, man is not responsible. Though he falls to the wiles of the woman's beauty, he is not responsible. The woman, the seductress, these stereotypes clearly portray women as demonized villains. There is no overlap. There are no gray areas. Either you are an angel in the house, virgin, pure, innocent, sweet, lovely, caring, or you are a powerful woman, full of ambition, full of cruelty, having devilish desires of power, wants to control your man. Oh, you are a witch. You are a witch. See, this is what a single, the career choices women makes even today. We cannot say that we are an empowered society because the career choices women makes, many women have to give up their careers to raise their children. Now we call them in literature, in society, we call them good women. But if a woman says, no, my career is important for me, I cannot waste my life looking after you and your children, then we say she's a bad woman, she's an evil woman. All the bad words we start pouring at her. Domestic women become the poster child for virtue, while ambitious and independent professional women are considered a danger to the society and often to themselves as well. Novelists do this. They represent strong women. They rebuke them. They condescend them for their choices and treating their independence, and they treat the independence and sexuality that these women represent as a transgression. It's wrong. It's wrong. In most novels, male characters are given the freedom and independence to explore and become what they like. They are allowed to make mistakes and nearly always end up absolving themselves of any crimes they might commit. Female characters, on the other hand, have to go through this litmus test called purity, virginity. If considered pure, they are praised and given all status and all privilege. Oh, you are so sweet, you are so beautiful, you are so lovely, everything. And if she is considered impure, she is demonized and treated with disdain, a narrative that more often than not culminates in the woman paying for her sins. You know, think about the many novels you have read where we find the woman paying for her sins because she is not pure. Purity, virginity doesn't apply to men. Why? Demonization of women, all these things. You look at George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, or A Cuckoo Flew. These stories all abound in such stereotypes where women are demonized. They are either expected to be very good, very lovely, very quiet, or they are vilified as something evil and bad. We know the Lady Macbeth image, what she said to Macbeth. See, if I were in your position, I would even kill a suckling baby who is at my breast, and I would hold his leg and smash his brains out by hitting him on the floor. That was the kind of dialogue that Lady Macbeth made. But she only said, and he did. And we say that poor innocent Macbeth was forced to do all these things by that cruel Lady Macbeth. Who is cruel? Who is actually cruel? Demonization. Then, my dear friends, if you look at our society and our lives, demonization isn't limited to these few categories, Islamists or minority groups or subalterns or women. No, I can even give you some other very interesting examples, not in detail. Think about the demonization of psychiatrists in fiction and film. How psychiatrists are demonized. Psychiatry has never enjoyed the respect and social prestige that other medical professions enjoy. They are regarded with suspicion, fear, and defensive colleague, even by defensive ridicule, even by their colleagues, as well as by common men, let alone poor common men. And if something worse is happening in fiction, what is happening in fiction, in film, in literature, in culture? The psychiatrist is presented as a villain. He is presented as a murderer, rapist, a pedophile, a charlatan, a crook. At his most benevolent, the psychiatrist is presented as an ineffectual fool, unable to manage even his own life or wife. This is the way psychiatrists are presented. Demonization. So this idea of demonization exists in all walks of life. Now, I will end this session, in this lecture, if you may call it that, by telling you this. Let's reserve judgment. Let's not pass judgments. Whether it is apotheosis, making someone God. We made Sachin Tendulkar a God. If cricket is our religion, Sachin is our God. Apotheosis, making somebody God. And on the other hand, we demonize people. Let's not do either. Let's reserve judgments. Human beings are like books. Some deceive us with their covers, while others surprise us with their inside, like books. Some deceive us with their covers, while others surprise us with what is inside them. There is very little we can control about what is happening around us. However, we still can and must control what is happening within us. I sign off making a quotation, giving you a quotation from Francis Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. The sentence with which the novel begins, the most famous sentence. I just caught that, and that winds up this lecture. In my younger, there the narrator says, in my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I have been turning over in my mind ever since. This is the advice that his father gave him. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, he told me, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you have had. Should I repeat? I repeat. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you have had. And that is where all judgments should stop, all judgments should end. Thank you for your patient listening. And of course, we can have questions, suggestions. I would like to hear from people about what you think about what I said, because these are not any ultimate truths. These are just my opinions and some thoughts. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll just see if there are some questions. Audience, do you have any questions? Anyone in the audience who would like to ask any question? So I think there's no question. Vinaya ma'am? Ma'am, can you hear me?
No, ma'am, you're on mute.
Ma'am, we cannot hear you. You have to come close to the laptop.
Please bring
Question
the
from my
device.
side, but the talk was so exemplary that I was so dazed and enchanted, and the way he quoted Shakespeare, the way the arguments unfolded in a very coherent and unified manner, and he explained it so clearly, and it made it so interesting with those from Frankenstein and Adam and Eve. Of course, yes, and he gave a good lesson. Let us not be judgmental, and either idealize someone or hero worship someone or demonize. Because we are all human beings, we are the good and the bad. All, no one is a god or what is that? It's a wonderful session. Thank you, sir. Somebody's raised her, some Divya, yes.
Yes, Divya. Divya, you can ask your question.
Divya, I guess you can type your question in the chat box.
Yeah.
Actually, just a second. The chat was disabled for the participants. I'll just make him a co-host. Yes. So just a second.
Hello, sir. Very good afternoon. In fact, evening to all the participants and members who have joined the meeting. I have a question. Before that, I would like to confirm, am I audible and visible?
Yeah.
Yes, you are
Yeah.
audible, you
All
are
right.
visible, you look handsome.
Thank you, sir. All right. So before asking the question, I'm really excited and I would love to share about my experience about how this discussion was all about. And I am really happy that you would, make it up to the youth of today's time and give examples and narratives about the good and evils relating to our life stories. Like since we are under the program and undergraduation courses, we often come across times wherein we are in a relationship with anyone or similar things. So I'm very sure that you made us feel nostalgic about how our discoveries could have been or were in the past, and I'm really happy for that. And my question to you is, since it was a little youth-centric approach which you used, would you like to share any other experience about how can we differentiate between the good and the evil? Like it is on a personal scale, it is often difficult for us to actually differentiate between the good qualities and characteristics when we have a person whom we really hate, or vice versa when it comes to an evil person and whom we want to love or feel affectionate about, but have some hindrances in his or her qualities. So, how can we make amendments in our lives? If you could share some highlights over that.
Well, my dear friend, first of all, thank you for your kind words and nice words. I would be the last person to give you advice on these things because I am myself searching answers to these questions.
We are all.
And we
We
are
are all
all.
searching.
And I don't know whether I will ever find answers to these questions. But, if I can speak about my own experiences, what life has taught me is there is nobody who is fully bad. There is nobody who is
Exactly what
fully
I said.
good. This is
Even
this
I.
is this is what life is telling me. You find even in the worst of persons, you think that somebody is terrible, horrible, toxic, but even in them you can find so many good qualities. There is a wonderful story by Karel Capek. He is a atheist. He's an atheist writer, and his story is titled "The Last Judgment." In
Ah,
that The Last Judgment by Karel Capek, and in that story, he presents God, and it's very interesting how an atheist presents God. He presents God as someone who never judges anyone. God
because he
says that man belongs to man. And so, we all expect, most of the religions in the world tell us that there will be a final judgment when the good will be separated from the bad. We are told in Christianity, we have the idea of the second coming. In Hinduism, we have similar thoughts where we are saying that this is Kali Yuga, and after this, there will be dissolution and there will be a judgment happening. Every religion tells us that, there is something going to happen where somebody is going to judge us. But in this story, Karel Capek makes this point very clear that God cannot judge. Because, and I think that is a very useful point as well.
we may
If,
put him a team meeting.
if we look at what we want to achieve, religions, based on religions, we would say that the purpose of our life is to go to heaven. Now, how many of the religious people want to die? Because if you don't die, you can never go to heaven, right? So, it's a difficult question. What we want to achieve, what is good and what is bad, and who decides what is good and what is bad? Because, my dear friend, we live in a time when the idea of truth itself is being questioned. Right. Earlier, we used to say that there is a single truth and there is a single meaning to everything, and structuralism was about meaning, and there is a structure, and you could find out the meaning if you followed the right purposes. For example, I'm reading a particular novel, a particular poem, and if I'm a good reader who uses the correct thematic tools to analyze the poem, I will be able to come closer to the original meaning of the poem that the author intended. So we think that there is a single meaning, and a good reader will be able to arrive at the meaning. And who put that meaning in that poem? The author put that meaning in this poem. This is how we imagined. But with post-structuralism, what happened is they are saying that who put the meaning? People like reader response critics would tell you
Yes.
there are as many meanings as there are
And
readers. No, if there are 100 people attending to this lecture, there will be 100 ways in which they will interpret what I have said. So it is not what I have said, but it is what you have understood that my lecture is all about. That is what my lecture is all about. And each story is like that. Each poem is like that. There are multiple truths. And then there comes this question as to whether there is truth at all. Now, people like Martin Heidegger and, Being and Time, Hans-Georg Gadamer, these people seem to suggest that there is neither truth nor falsity, there is only language. Whatever we see as reality out there is just language. Because think about it, when did we start understanding anything? When we started learning and when we started using the language. Before we learned our mother tongue, think about our memory. Can we remember anything before the time when we knew a language? No. So probably even our memory started working after we learned language. So without language, nothing exists. Now, this is very difficult to agree because I see this bottle here, I see my mobile phone here, and if somebody tells me that there is no mobile phone and no bottle, and these are all constructions of language, then I would have serious difference of opinion with them. But then they are saying that difference is created, meaning is created by difference according to Saussure, Ferdinand de Saussure, structuralism. And then people like Jacques Derrida, with their deconstructive ideas, suggested that this whole idea of structuralism itself is flawed. There is no structure, there is no center. Things are being decentered, things fall apart. The center cannot hold. So the question of truth is a very difficult question to answer. And I think Khalil Gibran was very poetic when he said, I don't know a truth, I know truths. Truths. There are truths, and there is my truth and your truth and everybody's truth. So how will God judge us? How will we judge anyone? I'm very sad when I see people using words like toxic. I find so many statuses. I go through WhatsApp status of my student friends because that helps me keep young and keep updated about what is happening around me. There is a student language and a student, they use a peculiar language and things like that. So I love going through their WhatsApp status messages. Now, I find this word very upsetting. They use the word toxic and they brand certain people as toxic. I don't know. When I was their age, I couldn't find anybody toxic around me. But now maybe a lot of toxic people have been born or brought up. But I don't know. But I feel that it is better for us. I would borrow an idea from Derrida. He said we should do deconstruction without embracing the margins. It's not about favoring anyone. If I am speaking about feminism, it's not about removing man from the center and putting woman at the center. Instead, Derrida said we have to do away with this sort of thinking itself. We should not think that somebody is center and somebody is margin. Everybody should coexist. And personally, this is what I follow right now. 5 years hence, if I am alive, if COVID doesn't take me, then I may have a different idea. I may say something else. And 10, 20 years hence, I may be saying God is everything. You go to the church and pray and God will tell you the truth. Because, life changes our opinions. But this is what I feel. This is my personal opinion only. And I'm sure that all people here will have their own opinions on this. And I respect all opinions. I don't want to insist or put my opinion on anyone. Just sharing my thoughts. Your name is Divya?
Yes, sir.
Oh, nice.
It's
Nice
pronounced
name.
as Divya.
Divya. Good,
Yeah.
good. Nice. Okay.
So, and
Thanks for the question. Yeah.
thank you,
Yes,
sir.
go
I
ahead.
also have something to add on to this, if you may allow so. Yes. So, first of all, you have like, even while answering, you were very accurate and you have articulated everything very well. And things that you just told also inspired me and made me find my answers about the question which I posed to you. It's about how unique an individual is and differences in opinion as per the dynamics of time. So as time flows on, people have different opinions about other people and with respect to other elements of life. And communicating, that is language, for which we are hosting today, the Literature Festival, is a very vital part of everyone's life. So communicating effectively helps to build and, are the building blocks of a relationship with a man, of a man with a woman, or a man or with any individual, between any individual. And the phrases and the inspirations that you shared with us about the deconstruction without embracing the margin part and other stories were really inspiring, and looking forward to connecting with you, and also hope you find your answers in the near future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Divya. It was nice talking to you. Others also, I don't know if you got muted or you are not able to speak. If you are able, you can share your views and opinions. You don't have to ask anything, if you don't want to. But I know that you all have strong opinions about lives and matters like this, because these are part of our lives. And people who would want to connect to me, or if you are unable to ask anything, I shall just put my WhatsApp number, Indian number, on this chat box. I hope everyone, it is visible, it will be visible to everyone.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
I'm putting it in the chat box. Yeah, this is my Indian number. If you are from outside India, please add +91 before the number, the country code.
Thank you, sir, for sharing that.
So I guess Ayushi is facing some network issues. So she just texted me. And so I don't think so there are any other questions as well from me.
Okay, then
Yes,
we
sir.
should be winding up, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So also we are having a panel right now just after 15-20 minutes. So it's a panel about together through literature. So
Okay,
sir,
lovely.
I'll also share a link with you for that as well, sir.
Sure.
So we'll
Thank you
start
so much.
around 5:15 or 5:10, sir. Yes,
Okay. So all
thank you,
dear
sir.
participants, thank you so much for your wonderful participation. You have been following the dictum, silence is golden. Uh, but of course, I know that, not always we want to ask a question or share something on a public platform, but we keep thinking, and it is not necessary. I was also a very reserved person when I was a student. I would never ask a question. Even if I had questions, I would never ask because I was reserved. Now, after becoming a teacher, you don't have a choice but to speak. And then you don't stop speaking. You eat the mic also after speaking. Uh, so all the best to all of you. Thank you so much, and such a pleasure to meet you all. Special thanks to Amity and Vinay ma'am and everyone, especially our student team under Dhun and not under Dhun, with Dhun and others.
Yes, sir. With
They
the,
have
yes,
been
sir. Thank you
amazing
so much,
people,
sir.
amazing people. Thun is like, Aladdin's magic lamp. Whatever you ask him, he will provide you. Or he is like Dr. Faustus's Mephistopheles. You just tell him what you want, and he is there for you. So you have been amazing people. Aishi is back. So over to you, Aishi. So thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, indeed. Sometimes people have a weird cult experiences, and these tales are reflected in literature. Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful presentation. And I really hope the participants has grabbed something from it. I'm so sorry I had this network glitch in between the session. I'm so sorry for that.